All right, so here is my handy dandy custom Lakers salary cap sheet for the upcoming season. Most of these numbers are general numbers, but I have pulled these from resources like Spotrac. First, a general lay of the land and some caveats before I start this breakdown. Today, I'm mainly going to be looking at the LeBron takes a pay cut scenario, and I'm going to outline all the different ways and avenues for him to do that in. I know reports have come out that LeBron James isn't expected to take a pay cut this summer, but things can always change, and I'm going to do my due diligence anyways and give you guys the LeBron takes a pay cut scenario and all the different mini scenarios within that macro scenario. Also, I'm mainly going to focus on free agent signings in this video and not delve into all the different trade possibilities, which would affect how much the Lakers have to spend and how many open roster spots they'd have. I will cover trade scenarios in a later video, and my most ideal Lakers offseason scenario at the end of this video will actually feature a trade. But for now, let's just run through the basics of the Lakers cap books and the different scenarios they have at their disposal, and how much of a pay cut LeBron needs to take to open up the most amount of spending ability for Rob Pelinka this summer. All right, without further ado, let's get into the basic lay of the land of the Lakers' 2025-26 salary cap sheet. If we take a look at this sheet, the top four players, LeBron James, DFS, Shake Milton, and Jordan Goodwin, I place them at the top because they have specific caveats attached to their contract. LeBron James obviously has a player option. DFS also has a player option. Both of them could opt out. Shake Milton has a non-guaranteed contract, and so does Jordan Goodwin, meaning the Lakers can just not guarantee their deal and they wouldn't be on the roster. But assuming all of them stay on the roster and that LeBron James opts in, DFS opts in, the Lakers guarantee Shake Milton's deal to use in a trade because that $3 million could prove valuable in salary matching scenarios. And they also guarantee Jordan Goodwin because he's on such a cheap deal. Assuming all of those things happen, the Lakers would have 13 players currently on the roster for a total of $192.6 million. Now, you'll notice that I added the Lakers' second round pick, the number 55th pick, into this scenario. That pick would make around $1.1 million, and I added that player in here just because he costs so little, and if the Lakers actually want to retool and rebuild around Luka Doncic, they will need as many cheap contracts and talent that they can get. So I added the number 55th pick in here. Remains to be seen whether the Lakers just trade out of that pick or stash it overseas, in which case that pick wouldn't factor into their books. But with that said, currently the Lakers have a total of 13 players for $192.6 million. Now, if we look at my thresholds column, you will see the three important benchmarks that the Lakers have to be wary of. The luxury tax next season is projected to be at $187.8 million. The first apron is set to be at $195.9 million, and the second apron is set at $207.8 million. Currently, the Lakers sit $3.3 million below the first apron. And I think for this upcoming offseason, the Lakers want to be below that first apron mark because there are more restrictions once you pass each of the aprons. I won't break them down in specifics in this video, but right now with the Lakers $3.3 million below the first apron, to put things simply, the Lakers are currently operating in that sweet spot above the luxury tax and below the first apron. Now, the exceptions that are available for teams in this range to use would be the $5.6 million taxpayer MLE, which means if you use that exception and go above the first apron, you become capped at the second apron, which if the Lakers use the taxpayer MLE, 192.6 plus 5.6 would push them above the first apron, making them an above first apron team and capping them at that 207.8 mark, which I don't think they even want to pass in the first place. Now, in the Lakers range, there are a couple of things they can do to open up the $14.1 million non-taxpayer MLE. Teams that can use the non-taxpayer MLE are teams that are below the first apron and have enough space to accommodate that $14.1 million without passing that 195.9 first apron mark. Now, there is also the $5.1 million BAE. the Lakers would have that available to them if they can make enough space and room beneath the first apron to also use that. The Lakers, just like every other team, also have the veteran minimum exception to use. This upcoming year, a player with 6 years of experience would be making $2.8 million for the veteran minimum. A player with 7 years experience would make about $3 million, and then it would gradually rise from there. And these are all numbers you will have to take into account for your final salary cap books. All right, so now that we've got a pretty general basic look at all of the numbers that we're working with, let's now take a look at some different scenarios and see how much of a pay cut LeBron James needs to take in order to open up that $14.1 million non-taxpayer MLE and maybe even the $5.1 million BAE as well. All right, so first off, if the Lakers want to use the non-taxpayer MLE, LeBron James will need to opt out of his player option. So let's remove LeBron James' $53.6 million off the books. What other ways can the Lakers free up some extra money before we ask LeBron James to take a pay cut? Because we'll want to do that last. The first and easiest way we can free up some extra money before asking LeBron James to take a big pay cut is by non-guaranteeing Shake Milton's contract, or by not guaranteeing it. So let's remove Shake Milton's $3 million off the books. If we remove Shake Milton, we're down to 12 players and we would be $6.6 million below the first apron. Still not enough to use that $14.1 million non-taxpayer MLE, but we would have enough space to use the $5.1 million BAE. One thing to also note is that the Lakers only have 12 players on their roster if they remove Shake Milton, and so they would still need to fill out their roster by at least 2 players, I figure, with veteran minimums. And so that would kind of erase the $6.6 million buffer that we have beneath the first apron. So really, there's not an easy way to free up more money without LeBron James just taking the pay cut himself. So let's reverse engineer this a different way and actually put the non-taxpayer MLE on the salary cap books and work our way backwards. So let's say the Lakers fill out a 15-man roster using the non-taxpayer MLE. Here's kind of what their books would look like without putting LeBron James' pay cut number up there first. If you look at this sheet, I've already added the non-taxpayer MLE at the top in green, $14.1 million. And I've also added 2 veteran minimum guys who are each making $3 million. So they would cost $6 million combined. We've got 15 total players currently. That's a full roster, not including two-way spots. Now, the Lakers could carry only 14 players heading into training camp, which is what Rob Pelinka typically likes to do, but I'm just giving you the full scenario regardless. So with this current setup, with 15 total players and not taking into account LeBron's salary yet because we haven't calculated that, the 14 players we have numbers for, those 14 players total up to about $156.7 million. Now, the number that we're most concerned about at this point is the first apron of $195.9 million. Because if we want to use the $14.1 million non-taxpayer MLE, we need to be below that first apron. We are currently at $156.7 million without factoring in LeBron James' new contract. At this point, it's just simple subtraction. We're going to take the first apron number of 195.9 and subtract the Lakers' current 156.7 total. So here is inevitably what we would get. LeBron James would need to opt out of his player option and take a nearly $14.3 million pay cut and only make $39 million this upcoming season in order for the Lakers to use the $14.1 million non-taxpayer MLE. In this scenario, the Lakers would have a full 15-man roster for a total of about $195.7 million. That would leave us $200K beneath the first apron. So, would LeBron James actually take a $14 million pay cut next season? And if he does, who would he take that pay cut for? Now, something to keep in mind is the Lakers can also avail of the $5.1 million BAE. If you add the $5.1 million BAE, you would need to ask LeBron James to take an even bigger pay cut. So is there a way for the Lakers to realistically and logistically use both the non-taxpayer MLE and the BAE and be below the first apron? Let's take a look. So what I adjusted from the last sheet to this sheet is I removed one veteran minimum player from the equation who was making $3 million, so that freed up $3 million. And then I asked LeBron James to take another $2 million pay cut. So he would be making $37 million next season if we wanted to fit in the $14.1 million non-taxpayer MLE and the $5.1 million BAE. This is what it would sort of look like. We've got 15 players. We've only got one new veteran minimum guy, but we have a new BAE guy and a new non-taxpayer MLE guy. With this full roster and LeBron James taking nearly a $16 million pay cut, we would come out to a total of $195.8 million, which is $100K beneath the $195.9 first apron. So we did it. Now, the bigger question once again remains, is LeBron James actually going to take a $16+ million pay cut to make this happen? Who knows? But this is what it's going to take, and for now, we're going to assume that he takes some sort of pay cut. But at this point, I think $16 million is too much of a pay cut for LeBron James to take, and I want to help him out as much as I can by making sure that he has every single extra dollar that he can get back in his pocket. So are there other ways for us to save money so that LeBron James doesn't have to take that big of a pay cut? Let me show you one scenario that I could see happening that would save LeBron James a little bit more money. All right, let me explain this new breakdown for you guys. So in this scenario, we gave LeBron James back $1.2 million. And the way that we did that was DFS opted out of his player option and the Lakers re-signed him to a new 3-year deal. But his first year in that new 3-year deal would actually be lower than what he was currently expected to make this upcoming season. He's expected to make around $15 million this upcoming year, but since he signed a new 3-year deal, the Lakers worked things out with DFS so that his first year salary only comes out to $14 million. And so that's where we get that extra $1 million to put back into LeBron James' pocket. We essentially kill two birds with one stone by locking DFS up to a longer-term deal while getting a discount on his first year salary, and we give LeBron James a little extra spare change as well, while still being $200K below the first apron and being able to use the non-taxpayer MLE and the BAE. So I guess we killed like 5 or 6 birds with one stone. Realistically though, I don't think Rob Pelinka is going to be this greedy. I think if we can open up the non-taxpayer MLE of $14.1 million, I think the Lakers will be satisfied with that, and they won't try and also open up the $5.1 million. Because if you look at these books, like the veteran minimum next year is already at around $3 million. The BAE is not much more than that. And I don't think Rob wants to ask LeBron James to take a bigger pay cut than he needs to. And I don't think that $2 million gap between the BAE and the veteran minimum is going to be the difference between us getting a starter level player and a bench warmer. So let's assume moving forward that everything stays the same, but let's take out the BAE from this equation. And let's just say the Lakers are solely focused on just opening up the non-taxpayer MLE. And let's work with the scenario that DFS opts out and the Lakers sign him to a new 3-year deal, the first year being $14 million. What would that look like? And here's where I'll present a new scenario, because I think the best way for the Lakers to maximize the non-taxpayer MLE, if they plan to open it up this offseason, is by actually splitting it. So let me show you the split non-taxpayer MLE scenario. So here is the new sheet where we take out the BAE entirely, and we have DFS signing a new deal, $14 million the first year. And this time, in this scenario, we split the non-taxpayer MLE up into 2 parts, $7 million and $7 million. So in this scenario, the Lakers would be able to sign 2 different players for $7 million apiece. Now, they could rejigger this any way they want to. They could sign one player to $5 million, the other player to $9 million. You can split that $14.1 million up in any way you want to. In my scenario, I just have them splitting it down the middle evenly, $7 million, $7 million. In this scenario, LeBron James would only have to take a $10 million pay cut. LeBron would be making $43.6 million. We'd be able to sign one guy using the non-taxpayer MLE for $7 million. Then we would be able to sign a second guy using the non-taxpayer MLE, making $7 million. We would still have enough to sign one veteran minimum player with about 7 years experience who would make $3 million. and the rest of the roster would fill out the same way. Looking at this updated roster, we've still got a total of 15 players, not including two-ways, and all of those numbers would come out to $195.8 million. We would still be 100K below the first apron of 195.9. In my opinion, I think this is the most efficient and effective way to use the non-taxpayer MLE. I know Rob Pelinka in the past has never actually split that up, but I think this might be the year to do it because I figure a number of free agents are going to be pinched out in this market just as they were the last couple of years, and I think it's only going to get worse. So instead of putting all of our eggs into one non-taxpayer MLE basket and giving one player $14 million, why not try and sign two starter super bench quality type players to two $7 million contracts? And the benefit of this is you can also use those contracts to later trade in bigger deals. Obviously, if the Lakers are able to find a premier free agent who's willing to take that $14.1 million, then yes, don't split it up, just give the full non-taxpayer MLE to one player. But in the event that they can't get the guy that they want, I think it may be worth it for the Lakers to split that MLE right down the middle and try and get two starter quality / super bench type role players. All right, so those are pretty much all the scenarios that the Lakers have to work with in the non-taxpayer MLE BAE realm, but there is one other scenario that I haven't touched upon yet. It's probably unlikely, but I'm going to cover it anyways, and let's pull up my next cap sheet. So, can anyone tell me the differences in this cap sheet in comparison to the others that I've shown? I'll wait. You guys got it. This is like Blue's Clues, but purple and gold clues. So, in my updated cap sheet, you will notice that DFS is no longer there because there is a scenario where DFS opts out of his player option entirely and doesn't want to re-sign with the Lakers because he's been disrespected. The Lakers don't want to pay him what he wants to receive. And so here is the no DFS scenario. If DFS just opts out of his player option entirely and signs with another team, then LeBron James actually doesn't need to take a pay cut at all. The Lakers would have that $14.1 million non-taxpayer MLE to use. So if you are, for whatever reason, a DFS hater and you don't want him on the team and you think the Lakers can sign somebody else who's better than DFS using the $14.1 million non-taxpayer MLE, well, here is the scenario for you. So if we look at this roster, the Lakers have 14 players, not including DFS. We've got the non-taxpayer MLE up there. And I've added two veteran minimum guys with 9 years plus experience. Veterans with 9 years experience are projected to make $3.3 million in the upcoming year. So I've got us with 3 new players, a non-taxpayer MLE guy, and 2 veteran minimum exception guys. Now, we don't have a full roster of 15 guys, but I actually think that's how Rob Pelinka likes to leave things heading into training camp. And so looking at this scenario, all of these numbers total out to $195.6 million. That would leave us $300K below the first apron. At some point in the season, very later on in the season, we could use that $300K million to sign a 15th guy to the roster. In the simplest terms possible, if DFS walks, no pay cut needs to be taken by LeBron James, the non-taxpayer MLE would be freed up. The only pay cut LeBron James would need to take is if he wanted to open up the $5.1 million BAE as well, then LeBron James would need to take like a $6 million pay cut from his $53.6 million player option. So yeah, this is the non-DFS scenario. All right, so those are all of the logistics and scenarios with regards to exceptions and aprons, etc., etc. Those are pretty much all the scenarios regarding LeBron James taking a pay cut. Now let's get to one of my more ideal scenarios for the Lakers offseason, and let me plug in some tangible names for you guys. Now, in this most ideal scenario of mine, I've actually enacted a trade, so keep that in mind. I will have a future video where I go through different trade scenarios and will crunch the numbers and plug guys into this salary cap sheet. But for now, let's take a look at my quote-unquote most ideal Lakers offseason scenario with LeBron James taking a pay cut. And here it is. So let me run things down for you guys. I have highlighted all of the new things and changes in green, but let me start from the top. We've got LeBron James taking about a $13 million pay cut. He will only be making $40 million next year. We've got DFS on his new deal, making $14 million in his first year of a new 3-year deal. And then we've got Nick Claxton. What? So yes, in this scenario, I have gone ahead and traded for Nick Claxton. And the guys that have gone out would be Maxi Kleber, Gabe Vincent. Their salaries combined pretty much get us to that $25.3 million Nick Claxton mark. That trade would be legal. I still have Dalton Connect here. And the main asset that the Lakers trade out in this deal would be an unprotected 2031st first and a couple of pick swaps. Maybe the Lakers would need to include Dalton Connect. I don't think they do. I would try and hold out on that. So in my ideal scenario, one of my ideal scenarios, I have Gabe, Maxi Kleber, and Shake Milton, a 2031st first, and 2 pick swaps going out for Nick Claxton. And Gabe, Shake, and Maxi are all expiring contracts. So yes, that's the new big shakeup. The Lakers get their starting caliber lob threat in Nick Claxton, who Luka Doncic has referenced in the past as a player that he really admires. Now, here's what I did next. I split the non-taxpayer MLE up into 2 parts, $7 million, $7 million. And with those amounts, I went ahead and signed Brook Lopez, $7 million, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker to $7 million. Now, I'm not sure what type of money those players will inevitably command, but this is my quote-unquote ideal scenario. And in my ideal scenario, they would take $7 million apiece. You may not like Brook Lopez. We could switch that out with another name, like let's say a Steven Adams. If Steven Adams were willing to take $7 million, I would be totally down for that as well. But I feel like Brook Lopez is more likely than Steven Adams to take a $7 million contract. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker, I think $7 million is right up in his range, even though I think other teams may offer him the full non-taxpayer MLE of $14 million. But again, this is my ideal scenario. Somehow we've coaxed Nickeil Alexander-Walker to taking only $7 million for us. So those are the 3 big new names for the Lakers. Nick Claxton via trade, Brook Lopez non-taxpayer MLE number 1, Nickeil Alexander-Walker non-taxpayer MLE number 2. And with that, I feel like the Lakers have really reshaped their roster around Luka Doncic by getting 2 legitimate starting caliber center bigs, but 2 bigs who do different things. One is a lob threat in Nick Claxton. The other is a spacing big, but a spacing big who can block shots and also occupy territory in the paint because he's big and burly. And then we've also got Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who can be our point of attack perimeter defender / wing next to Luka Doncic. He will be our new Max Christie type player. And then I've also added another veteran minimum guy, 1 extra veteran minimum guy, and I want to bring in Dante Exum to add more point of attack defense, to add height and length to that point guard spot. And obviously, Luka Doncic has a lot of familiarity with Dante Exum over the last 2 years, and Exum has really revived his NBA career over the last 2 seasons. He was just a little banged up last season. But yeah, so this is my scenario. If we look at this entire sheet, that totals out to 14 rostered players who make $195.8 million combined. LeBron takes about a $13 million pay cut, and that would leave us $100K below the first apron. So we have achieved everything we needed to achieve and adhered to the new CBA's rules while getting a Nick Claxton, a Brook Lopez, a Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and a Dante Exum, all with the non-taxpayer MLE, LeBron taking a pretty sizable pay cut, but I think for guys that he would deem worth it. And ultimately, I think this type of roster is so much more well-rounded and has so much more depth than last year's Lakers team. Now, again, this is one of my more ideal scenarios. This isn't my most ideal. It's just one of my ideal scenarios. Who knows if any of this is realistic? You guys can swap out names if you want to based off of the numbers that I've provided. But this is just one outlook that I think would be pretty beneficial, and I don't think Lakers fans would cry about if it ended up happening. But yeah, that does it for my long-winded and convoluted Lakers 2025-26 salary cap breakdown. involving LeBron James taking a pay cut. I will have future videos where I look at the scenario where LeBron James doesn't take a pay cut and what the Lakers can do in that situation. And I'll have future videos where I break down different scenarios with more specific signings and names. But if you like this video and you enjoyed the insight that you got from this video, please do me a huge favor and subscribe to this channel. Much more to come as the offseason progresses. Also, just to be clear, I am not an expert salary cap guru or capologist. I leave that for guys like Eric Pincus and Yazzie Goslin, who have been on the podcast before. I'm just an amateur who has crunched the numbers very diligently in the past for the past decade or so. So I have knowledge into these things, but I do make some mistakes. So if you find any inconsistencies in my numbers, let me know in the comments below. But I think I did a pretty good job of laying out the spectrum of scenarios at the Lakers' hands this offseason. But yeah, with that said, once again, please like this video, comment down below, and most importantly, please hit this channel up with a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Till next time, this has been Jonathan Hernandez of the Lakers Legacy Podcast, and I will catch you guys later. Peace.